Welcome everybody to Climbing Everest, a course in Karandavasana. This is probably one of my favorite asanas to teach and break down, but truth be told, it was probably one of the only poses that I also didn't ever care if I mastered, ironically. And then I did. And now that I have, I really love sharing, with others how they can master it too. This is Carrie. Carrie's an Ashtangi, and she's going to be assisting me today. She is learning it and definitely mastering it pretty quickly. So she'll be assisting me in demoing all of the movements. Karandavasana is a very complicated asana. There's a lot of moving parts, right? And so when I finally decided it was time to really, master this pose, or to get what I needed from it, to do it completely, I had to break it apart. I had to take it apart and really examine all the parts, because if you try to tackle Karandavasana all at once, it'll just pummel you. Like, it's just a beast of an asana. So you have to start in stages and then progress, like in build on the parts. And if you do that, if you work more methodically in that sense, there's no way you can't master it. But I highly recommend not tackling it all at once, not chewing off more than you can, or biting off more than you can chew, and honoring where you're at and really examining those places, because with each section of the pose, as you cultivate that relationship and get stronger, all of those parts will come together and the whole process will be strong and powerful. And so I've broken this course down into multiple parts for that purpose, so that way, regardless of what stage you're at in the process, there's a piece for you to work on. I heard a statistic that about 2% of those who practice this pose in the Ashtanga sequence, right? Like, not just for fun because they found it on YouTube or on Google, but those who actually are in the process of learning it because it's a part of their daily practice, about 2% will actually have the strength, the flexibility, and all the mechanics in line to do the pose completely. That's a very low percentage. And truth be told, it's because very few can teach it, right? If you can teach it, you can learn it and you can do it. I'm here to assist anyone who really wants to learn this pose, because it is possible. Don't let it get the better of you. Just be patient with your process. What takes one person a day could take another person a lifetime. So, honor where you're at, and have the integrity to apply the mechanics where you're at as well, and not jump ahead. And you too will find success in this pose, and you'll make it to the top of Everest. And that's why I call it Everest, because it's just a mountain you have to climb. So that being said, the only real prerequisite that I require for this pose, well, I guess there's maybe two. The first one would be if you can clear the floor to pick up and jump back. Okay, that lock and lift that you need to feel and understand in your body is going to make or break your ability to do the same when you come back up. Okay, so if you can't do that, then hold on to this course and focus on your pick up and jump back, and really master that part of the process. Once you understand how to fully connect to your bandhas from there, then you'll be able to apply it in Karandavasana. The other thing that you really want to have in play is a decent back bend. You're gonna need that back bend. You don't have to do an extreme back bend, but this pose comes after Kapotasana in the second series for a reason, okay, because you kind of need that opening. So know that if you don't have a good back bend, you're going to be working against yourself, because that opening is going to become key to being able to find what you need when you come down and come back up. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like it's all strength, but the truth is that you need a lot of mobility to do this pose as well. So be honest with yourself. I've definitely worked with a lot of students who are like, oh, that doesn't matter. and they face plant constantly because they don't have the opening they need, you know, and obviously those who don't know how to clear the floor and jump back are working against themselves as well, because they don't even know, they haven't even made it to base camp 1, so there's no way that they're going to make it to the top of the summit if they can't even get to the first level. So, you know, that's not a judgment, and there's no shame in that. It's just that you need to honor where you're at and have that integrity, so that way you're working strategically, okay? So if you're ready, Carrie, we'll start breaking it down. Okay, so step 1 of the process to learn Karandavasana. So Karandavasana is just a really advanced form of Pincha Mayurasana, right? We're just like taking a pose and adding a bunch of goodies to the top of it, okay? But at the core, we have to have a good Pincha Mayurasana, which is forearm stand. So Carrie's going to demonstrate what that looks like. Good. So Carrie jumps up. You can jump up, you can kick up, you can press up. But the point is that you need to be able to hold this comfortably, okay? If you don't have the balance here, then this is where you stay. But this is going to be step 1 in learning Karandavasana. Thank you, dear. So now, what do? We're in Karanda, we're up there in Pincha, and we have to bring our legs into lotus. Now, most of us haven't done that upside down, right? And what a lot of students find is that it's one thing to do Padmasana on the floor, but it's another thing to do it in the air, right? Okay? And that's because, first of all, like I said, you need to have a stable Pincha because of balance. If you can't balance, you can't come into lotus, you're going to fall. But coupled with that is the fact that when you do Padmasana on the floor, go ahead and demonstrate. Right? Your body is actually bent. You're bent at the hips, at the waist here. Okay? But when you do it in the air, the hip flexor becomes long. And that's a completely different stretch than if you do Padmasana on the floor, okay? So now we're like examining whether or not our hip flexors are open. And for a lot of us, they're not, okay? So what I suggest students do is come into it and find that opening from a tripod headstand, okay? So I'm gonna have you do a tripod headstand and then bring your legs into lotus from up there. So now you have gravity working with you or against you, depending on how you look at it, okay? And you have to be able to come into lotus upside down, okay? This alone is going to trip up a lot of people because they've just never done it. That's why I suggest you do it from the tripod where you have stability organically, okay? If you can't do a tripod headstand, you're definitely going to need to get back in line and revisit this pose at a later date. But from here, right? Now she has the stability to play around with her hips, with her legs. She can move around and bring her legs down. But what I want Carrie to do actually is to bend from her hip flexor backwards. So now she's getting a really nice stretch in her hip flexor, okay? Because over time, it's going to aid you, it's only going to assist you to have mobility here. If your hip flexors are tight, now you're working with balance and you're limiting your mobility because your hip flexors are not open enough, okay? You want to be able to negate or move out of the way as many variables as possible so when you go to tackle the pose all at once, it's as seamless and easy as possible, right? So that means that we need open hip flexors, okay? So this is one way to do it. It's a great way to learn how to come into lotus upside down. The other way is from the floor. So you're going to come into lotus. And now you're just going to crawl onto your belly. and you're gonna relax. So this is another really nice way to open your hip flexors, okay? Again, this is really just for the purpose of making the pose super simple in the end, because it's so much to think about. So if this is where you're at, if this is as far as you can go, then make this a part of your daily routine. Get comfortable and relax and let those hip flexors open. So Carrie just mentioned one of her favorite stretches, which is to do the lotus on the floor, but then to kind of come into upward dog. It only adds to the hip flexor stretch, so I want to make sure that as the virtual audience, you're aware of this. Yeah, so from here you can actually get even more of a stretch. I can't stress enough how important mobility is. It's not all strength. In this position, you definitely want a lot of mobility to tackle it. Perfect. Now, believe it or not, okay, there's going to come a point where you're really going to need a good back bend, okay? And I know I mentioned this, but it's totally crucial. This is not like a, added bonus. This is a necessity to coming in and out of the pose. So Carrie's going to do an exaggerated form of Pincha Mayurasana. She's not going to quite go into Scorpion, but she's going to show you how much mobility is needed. Okay, so she's up. All right, now, less legs, more heart. Less legs, more heart. More heart. Even more heart. Soften your shoulder girdle. More heart. So this is not an uncommon position to be in, minus the legs. The heart and the chest area, that's definitely going to be necessary. Okay, go ahead and come out, dear. You're going to need that kind of mobility. That's why I said the back bends are crucial. You really want to have that heart opening. And you want to have not just a vertical stretch or a vertical bend in the spine, but a lateral opening of the shoulder girdles, right? Because what you're trying to do when you come out is find upward dog. And that will totally be the icing on the cake for you coming back up. And if you're not open, you're gonna face plant. Everyone does, okay? They crash down. You want to find upward dog, okay? It's a totally different action than what the mind tries to do in an effort to survive coming out, okay? So if you want to actually go ahead and demonstrate just kind of Ustrasana, and then if you want to go into a deeper back bend, just to show kind of some things they can do to open their own chest and heart. So from here, right, it's not just her spine that's working, her shoulder girdle is softening open as well. And this will help propel the heart to move beyond the shoulders when you come out. So that's going to be really important. In fact, if you can't do this, you're totally working against yourself. Thank you, dear. Perfect. Okay, so now that we have been able to conquer those other parts, right? Like, let's say this is where you're at. You're like, I can go up, I can fold into lotus, and that's it, okay? I always plummet to the ground. No problem. That's why we're here. Okay, so now we're gonna actually practice kind of putting those parts together. Okay, she's going to go up, go into lotus, and we're going to practice lowering down. This is where you find out your edge, okay? Because if you can go down with control, right? Not just land hard, but if you can land softly, then you have much higher chances of going back up, all right? The biggest problem that happens is people go down, even if they have control, they go down and they disengage, okay? So we're gonna practice not disengaging. We're gonna just really focus on making that connection to our bandhas and lowering down with control so we can find our edge, and then we'll move on. The other thing I want to point out is that so many students and teachers develop this relationship where the teacher lowers them down and brings them back up. Stop. You will never master this pose that way. Maybe a guy will who's naturally really strong, but otherwise, no. If the teacher is there to help you, you're never going to know your edge, okay? And you have to know your edge to know what to work and how to engage and how to connect to what you need in order to master this. And I'm taking away your training reels. I understand, but I'm going to give you some other ones. You'll be fine. But you have to know your edge in order to be able to master this pose, okay? So that's what we're going to find with Carrie right now is her edge. We're going to see if she can lower down with control. I'm here to demonstrate as well if need be. But I would like you to go into pincha. And before you go into lotus, get comfortable, get steady. Good. Now that she's in lotus, before she lowers down, I also want to point something out. This is very, very, very important, okay? Take your lotus in. If you can tighten your lotus and you can find your bandhas, that connection right in your legs to your center, you're already connecting to what you need to go down and come back up. A loose lotus is an energetic waste. Tight lotus keeps everything locked in and engaged. Go on down. Slowly, good. That was pretty good. Now, if we can get her to hover, then we know we definitely have a winner. But that was really, really, really good. You want to try again, dear? Good. Find your steadiness. Bring your legs in, tighten your lotus, squeeze. Now I need Carrie to do a couple things. She's going to really engage her Uddiyana Bandha, and she's going to activate her obliques here to lower down with control. Flex your feet, flex your feet, flex your feet. Good. Tight lotus. Tighten your lotus. Yes. Good. The tighter and the more compact everything is, the more control that you will have in the pose. So always bring it in, find that lock, find your bandhas, lower down, and if you can hover and do it slowly, then you're way ahead of the game. I promise over time you'll be able to do that, okay? All right, now the next thing I actually want to show is a kind of a side note. So we're going to go back up, right? And that's like brutally challenging, okay? That's like where I think 99.9% of people are like, ugh, right? They're like, I can do everything else, I just can't go back up. Well, 90% of the pose is going back up when you really think about it. Because, I mean, that's where the real work is figuring out how to find that lift and not lose the engagement. So one thing that I was actually instructed to do, and this is another way to try and find that lift and lock, or that lock and lift, right? You need that connection to your inner body, to your bandhas, to master this. I mean, you just do. So maybe there's another easier way to do it, right? Okay, like let's find that thing that we're needing. What I was taught to do was I kind of piggybacked off of Bakasana, right? So in the second series of Ashtanga, you're going to do Bakasana, and you're going to actually jump to Bakasana, okay? So, and it's very, very different in the Ashtanga sequence, the way you do Bakasana. Most of us kind of just lean on our arms. But if you're really preparing for Karandavasana and even third series, you are going to take the sides of your arms and use your bandhas to lift your body up. So your hips are lower, okay, and everything is riding on energy. So you're kind of riding the sides of your arms instead of the backs of your arms. Can you demonstrate that?
Yeah.
So Carrie's actually going to take her legs slightly to the side, okay? And she's going to use her bandhas to keep her lifted as she drops her hips and her knees come up. Good. Push through your hands. Drop your hips, knees up. Drop your hips, knees up. Good. Perfect. Okay, so that's one way. I'll show you 3, okay? The next way is to jump to Bakasana, okay? Because we're gonna find that lift. We're gonna ride the energy and let it carry us to our arms, okay? Beautiful, beautiful. Nice controlled landing. And that's totally the idea that we need here, right? Is finding that connection to our inner body, to our energetic body, so that way the movements are controlled through our bandhas as opposed to our muscles. There is muscle engagement, don't get me wrong, but we don't want to muscle through our practice, right? We want to be efficient. So the better connected we are to our bandhas, the smoother the ride, right? Cool. Okay, so we demonstrated the first 2 Bakasana options, right? Like one is just to do Bakasana, right, the Ashtanga way, and then the second way is to jump into it, Bakasana B in second series. The third way is not really in the series, okay? This is just an exercise to build strength and to really find that lift, okay? I'll talk about this more in the side notes, but I think it's important to note now that Karandavasana is all about will, okay? There is no part of you that's like, oh, if I just yield or surrender, it'll just come in time, right? You have to fight your way through this pose. It's the only pose between first, second, third, and fourth series that I have found that will just destroy you if you don't tackle it, right? And so keep that in mind. Like, you have to fight. And I tell people, imagine you're on the edge of a cliff and you're hanging by your fingertips and you're gonna fall to your death, okay? Are you gonna let go and die, or are you gonna find the strength inside you to pull yourself up and over, okay? That's Karandavasana. So I just want you to have that in mind before we move on, because this is no easy feat, is it?
No.
Okay. So the third way is actually Bakasana handstand, okay? You may give it a shot and think, oh, hell no, okay? And that's okay. But play with it and, have fun with it. This is just an exercise that you can do in your spare time to try and find that power within yourself, okay? So I'll go ahead and demonstrate what that looks like. You don't have to jump to it. In fact, you can just start here if you want. Okay? So we're here, and we're going to push off into handstand. Okay? And if you really want, some extra credit, you can lower back down. So yeah, if you really want to test your limitations, right, and find another way to get that lift and lock, that's a good way. The thing about Karandavasana, right, is that, and most people will say this, I feel handicapped, right, because you're here. Now, if you really think about pushing, like, as a survival mechanism. If someone's coming at you and you're going to defend yourself, this is more natural than this. Like, we might cower out and do this or something, but if you really want to protect yourself, this is what we do, okay? So this is a natural thing to do in terms of that fight or flight motion, okay? And that's kind of what you got to find. And that's why the pressing to handstand is so common, because it's easy to push through our hands. It's a lot harder to push through our forearms. Now we're handicapped and we got to find that same power, right? So that's why I suggest trying Bakasana handstand, because it gives you the sensation of the obliques and the bandhas, but you have your hands on the floor, okay, instead of your forearms. So if you're really struggling, you can add that to your practice, and hopefully that will give you a little bit better of an idea or a connection to what it is you're looking for. So moving on, all right, so we have gone over pretty much everything except for going back up, which is always the hardest part. And, you know, I gave you a couple of different, you know, practices you can do to try and get stronger there. But ultimately, we got to do it in the pose, right? Which is so much fun. So, you know, when you come into Pincha, like you're coming into Karandavasana, right? You can kick up, you can jump up, or you can press up, okay? And once you've gotten to this point, like where all the other elements are in place, I highly recommend, if you're not already doing it, you press up. Why? Because you got to press back up. So you might as well learn how to press up in the beginning, right? Okay, because that's also going to help you strengthen your obliques. And that's a huge part of this pose. So pressing into Pincha, so much fun. Carrie's going to demonstrate what that looks like. You just kind of lean into it. So Carrie's going to get comfortable on her forearms, lean forward, bring her chest up, push through her arms, and she's pressed up. Strong legs, dear. Beautiful. That's totally what you need. Come on down. So this weird thing happens where people are like, oh my gosh, I'm falling forward. Yes, you are. And enjoy the falling forward, right? Because you're going to go forward and then you're going to rebalance back up. Would you agree? Yeah, there's definitely this element of I'm going to go forward, and to avoid falling on your face, you actually just keep your gaze up. It's super, super, super important to talk about this all the time. Your gaze has a lot to do with where energy goes. If you're looking down, expect energy to fall down. If you're looking up, energy is going to ride that wave up, okay? So a good way to counter that collapse is to keep your gaze forward and up. And if you can do that, then you won't face plant. Again, you do need to have open shoulders. I can't stress that enough either. Have that opening, okay? So that way when you go to push and lean into it, this doesn't happen, because if you're not open, this is gonna happen, it is. So go ahead and demonstrate it again. And if you can over-exaggerate a little bit of that leaning forward and then coming back out and lifting up so they can kind of see that it's normal. So she goes forward, 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 and then she balances perfect, yeah. So then she lifts up out of it. Good. Totally normal, totally standard. And this is another great activity, even if you just want to do this 10 times a day. That will help your, or not, that will help you to find what you need to come back up. So, yes, now we are going to, we're actually going to add a piece, okay? This is my favorite part, and this really and truly is like the icing on the cake. And I understand that, like, in the Ashtanga system, props are kind of looked down upon, okay? And I get that, and as a teacher, I try to avoid props. However, when I was learning this, I didn't really have a lot of help, okay? And I had to figure out how to get the strength I needed. Because, again, you're trying to push from this position. And that requires a lot of power in your latissimus and your serratus. And a lot of us don't have that. In fact, until you get to third, you don't even really start to tap into it. So it's kind of an anomaly to me that this pose is even in second series, because nothing really prepares you for it, you know, in terms of the strength to come back up. So what I did actually was I just got a belt, because a huge part of the physics of asana is understanding rooting and lifting, opposition. If you can find something to push against, it'll push back, and it'll give you that lift and that leverage you need. So when in doubt, if you want lift, if you want length, find your root. And that you can apply to any pose throughout any series in any style of yoga. If you want lift, if you want length, find your root more, and it'll give you that springboard, okay? It's a leveraging point. So again, you know, a lot of times people, they come out of Karandavasana like this, maybe they have the mobility. Maybe it's not even a mobility issue, right? It becomes a strength issue. And why? Because this part of their body, their trapezius and their deltoids and their triceps, are stronger than their serratus and their lats. And so it compensates. So you try to find that lift from here instead of from here, and then you end up collapsing again, okay? So the belt was a way for me to find that strength. It gave me something to push against, to find what I needed in here, okay, to come back up. So that's what I'm going to introduce. I honestly used my belt for a year, but once I started applying it, it took me 6 weeks to go back up. That's like no time at all if you really think about it. 6 weeks, okay? Because finally I had something, a tool to find the strength I needed, okay? It's very difficult otherwise, because like I said, even if mobility is not a problem, your stronger muscles will take over. It's survival. You're in survival. You're trying to find a way up. And so that's what happens to us. It happens a lot in back bends too. People don't bend properly from their shoulder girdle because the other muscles are dominating the bend, and they're taking it this way instead of this way. So we have to retrain the body, retrain the muscles, and find that action, okay? So that's what we're gonna do next. Carrie's gonna demonstrate what that looks like with the belt, and I'm a huge fan, you know. When your teacher's not around, get your belt out. All right, so now we're getting to the really fun stuff, right? We get to find our power. So we've got the belt, okay? Carrie's gonna actually put it on. She's gonna wrap it around her upper arm. You don't want it to be too close to the shoulder. You don't want it to be too close to the elbow. Go ahead and loosen it just a little bit, dear. So ideally you want it to be shoulder distance apart, okay? So that way you can move your shoulders to where you need them. If it's too narrow, you kind of lock yourself. If it's too wide, you can't leverage. So Carrie's gonna demonstrate what it looks like. She's gonna go up, she's gonna go in, and I'm just gonna have her go down and touch for one breath. This is super, super, super important. If you try to, again, if you try and tackle all 5 breaths at once, it's not gonna happen, because it's very difficult not to lose the engagement, okay? Ultimately, you can go down and hang out and watch TV and go back up. It's not gonna matter. But in the beginning, you want to be able to maintain that lift so you don't collapse and not come up at all, okay? So this is kind of where she's at actually with the pose for self. And she's gonna go down, she's gonna touch, she's gonna go back up. This is all about you right now. So tight lotus, she's gonna lower down for one breath. And when she comes out, she's gonna push into the belt and push down through the ground. Go back up, go back up. Perfect. She did it. Awesome. Hugely important here, that belt gives you something to push against. Okay, it's a lot easier to leverage when you have something to lean against than if you have nothing. So the action we're looking for is down and out, okay? So instead of bringing the hands in and the elbows out, we want to do the opposite. We want to actually take the arm this way, and we deliberately push the tricep into the belt, right? And if we were to be able to do it, I mean, it doesn't really happen, but the direction we're going is actually this way, right? You want to kind of exaggerate this and I've never actually done it, right? But you're thinking in that direction, you're pushing in that direction, and what it does is it keeps you parallel, okay? You don't really go there as much as it just keeps you parallel and engaging what you need, right? So the action on the ground from your root is to push down through the mat and out, okay? That was beautiful, dear.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna go 1 breath down, touch, go back up. Once that's easy, you're gonna try 2 breaths down, come back up. 3 breaths down, come back up, okay? Only go as far as, and you can practice this when you're coming down too, right? You don't have to go all the way down. You can go halfway, right, and go back up. In fact, I'll demonstrate that because I know people struggle with that. Find your edge midair. If you think you're gonna lose the engagement going down, go back up, okay? Well, I don't need a belt, but it does definitely make it easier. So you're here, and let's say you're gonna lose it midway. Then stay there and go back up, okay? Or you're really close and you're losing it, go back up. You don't have to go all the way down. You can, and go back up. Wherever your edge is, as soon as you feel like you're gonna lose it, go back up, okay? Because that's actually gonna give you what you need. I know it doesn't seem like it. You know, your mind's gonna tell you I have to go down for 5 breaths. It's not true, okay? This is a beast. Tackle it in nibbles. Don't try to digest it all at once. Your body is developing new neural pathways in the brain. It's connecting to the muscles. It's finding new ways to engage. So be patient. Allow yourself the time that you need. And eventually, you totally will make it back up.
Yes.
So the next thing that we want to actually go over is another cue when it comes to coming back up, right? So we understand that we're gonna push into the ground and out, okay? We're gonna really activate our latissimus dorsi and our serratus muscle to get that engagement to push up, okay? Very important. But there's another piece, when you're coming back up. And this is why a back bend is so important, because you're trying to find upward dog now. And here's what a lot of students do, even if they have the power to go back up. They don't go vertical, they go out, right? I've been there, Carrie's been there, and you're like, why can't I go up? I go out, and then I collapse down, right? So what I'm gonna tell you to do is what I told myself to do, was find a back bend. Find upward dog in your chest area. And literally think about sending your hips over your head. They won't go there. I mean, they might. Mine do now. I can go straight up and over. But the whole idea is that if you send your hips high enough, then you find vertical, okay? But if you just think up, I don't know why, but you just think up, they go out, right?
Yeah.
But if you think back bend, they go up. And I think a lot of it has to do with just the direction we're headed, right? It's not so much that you're going there as much as you just want a direction for your mind to connect to your body and to send it there. And there is, in the beginning, not 10 years from now there won't be, but in the beginning when you're practicing this, there's a little bit of a thrusting, okay? You really have to push, right? I mean, I don't want to tell anyone to get angry, but find it. You got to survive. You got to push. You got to find it deep within you to just thrust those hips up and send them over your head. So pay attention to when Carrie goes back up at how she sends her pelvic area and her hips over her head, just enough to get vertical, and how she ends up taking her heart and her chest into upward dog to balance and counter all of that weight. No collapsing here. Collapsing is collapsing. So everything is lifted and engaged. find your steadiness. Get comfortable. Tight lotus. Control it, control it, control it. Push down and out, hips overhead, hips overhead, hips overhead. Beautiful. So that's what happens when you take your hips over your head. You go up, you go vertical. Like, I mean, it's amazing what the right cue can do. I know it seems so weird. You're like, but I'm not going over my head, I'm going up. I know, but the hips, they're heavy, right? You got to find a direction to send them in that will give you what you need. And, you know, if you were driving a car, right, and you're not actually making a left-hand turn to get into the left lane, right? You're not cranking the wheel, but you're moving in that direction. Okay, so you turn the wheel just enough to move in that direction. That's kind of what we're doing with the mind-body connection, is we're giving it a direction to move, okay? You know, you might go into a back bend from there, and kudos to you if you do, but the whole idea is to find vertical from that position. So, and as a result, you know, of that pushing down and out, the heart opens and we stay lifted, okay? And it's amazing how when the parts come together, how it's actually not that difficult. Would you say?
Yeah,
so?
I just had to figure it out that one time. It's the hard part.
And it's just like any other pose. Like once you get it, and it's there. You don't have to be overwhelmed by it, you know what I mean, and muscle through it. Once you train the muscles to do an action, they just do it. It's just like anything else. So the last part, right? And this is what you'll do down the road, okay? Like once you don't need the belt anymore, because I don't recommend jumping out of pincha with a belt on your arms. But the full completion of the pose is to actually to pop out of it, essentially. So that's pretty much the last part of the process that we'll cover. So that was basically like getting up, going down, coming up. But the last part of the pose is if you're gonna apply it from the Ashtanga system, then you're gonna want to pop out, right? So I'm gonna actually demonstrate that. Now here's the thing. You want to use momentum, okay? That was probably the best cue that I was ever given when I was doing it. A lot of people kind of roll up to their hands, and that's not wrong necessarily. But if you're going to do it, like if you're going to go all the way back up, you might as well learn how to pop out, right? Like you might as well just do it, okay? So what you want to do actually is you want to take your legs beyond your head. Strong back, your erector spinae muscles that run along your spine, strong, okay? Take those legs, activate them, and then thrust them so that way you land in chaturanga. The momentum is going to be what pulls you out and you land on your hands, okay? So that's the best way that I was taught. I've been given so many different ways to learn that. That was my favorite. That one just made so much sense. Right? Because now you're using momentum. You don't have to try and find it anywhere else. You just let the legs do the work and carry you out. And I'll demonstrate what that looks like, okay? So we've come back up from Karandavasana, right? And now we have to exit. So we're here, we're vertical. Now we're gonna take our legs beyond our head, lift our heart, contract our back muscles, and thrust. There is a little pop with the hands. You're going to actively move them, but you're going to utilize the momentum of your legs to find that space between forearms and hands. So again, take your legs as far as you can. Strong back, strong legs. Spaghetti body will not help you here. You need a strong, contracted body so that when you whip the legs back, it pulls you up, okay? You want to use that momentum and take advantage of it and just land on your hands. And that is essentially Karandavasana. I hope that this course was helpful for you. I'm always welcome to feedback if you want to email me and work with me privately if you get stuck. But these were all of the parts right? We put them together, we took them apart and put them back together, and conquered the pose. And I'm really proud of Carrie, because as a female, it's very difficult to do this asana, and she's actually the first girl that was able to go back up. So I'm really excited for her.
Thank you, Paige.
And I hope, again, that you enjoyed this video. Tune in for the side notes, and that will just help you get an idea of what to expect emotionally and psychologically. So thank you. Namaste. So this is the side notes, and I like to do side notes because, you know, asana is physical, but it brings up a lot of psychological and emotional stuff, and I think it's important to touch on that. So like I said, during the course, you know, Karandavasana is all about will. It's about survival. If you give in, you're going to go nowhere, okay? You have to find that instinct inside you that's like, I can do this, and will it. I mean, really. Once I decided that I could do it, it was just a matter of time. But, you know, because I had heard that women weren't expected to learn it and do it, I kind of gave myself a free pass for about 10 years. I was like, well, no one can teach me how to go back up, and women aren't expected to go back up, so I'm not going to go back up, right? And then I did have a teacher friend at one point who was like, no, this is how you do it, and you can do it, right? And broke it down. So, okay. And it was literally 6 weeks before I was able to do it. And it was kind of about making that decision. Right, Carrie?
Yes.
I mean, would you agree that, like, you kind of have to believe in yourself?
Yeah, I was comparing myself to other women, because some women, or some people in general, just never are able to come back up. So I just thought, oh, I just won't be able to do it, or it'll take me like 10 years. And I just wasn't really thinking that I could do it, when really I just had to have that thought of, yes, I can do it, I just have to find the way. And yeah, it's been 2 weeks now. And it's going good.
Yeah, so don't get hard upon yourself either. I mean, students, I find that a lot. They beat themselves up because they can't figure it out right away. You know, this is a process-oriented practice. This is not an outcome-oriented practice, okay? It's process. And even after you do get something, you're going to find new nuances and new facets to everything that you do, and new ways to apply it and explore it and do it. So have fun with it. You know, just remember that this is not something you can yield your way into or out of. This is not something that, it's not like a back bend where the more you give up and let go, the deeper you go and the better it is. It's totally the opposite, right? And if there was one pose between first, second, third, and fourth series that I said topped them all and was the hardest to learn, it's this one. So be kind to yourself, be patient with yourself, know that this is a process. It's gonna take time. Your strength might not, you might not have a problem pushing, right? Maybe you're a guy and your problem is that you have to soften, in which case, you know, go back to Kapotasana. Like, find a little bit more opening, especially that lateral shoulder opening, okay? And if you're a girl, just know that, like, I'm not all muscle, all right? You don't have to be, you know, really, really muscular, right? You just have to understand physics and the mechanics of it. And, you know, if I can do it, you can do it. And I'm here to help and assist anyone because I find a lot of joy in helping others, you know, reach their target, reach what it is that they're trying to accomplish or achieve or experience. So, you know, this is not something that comes easy, and if you can do it, I think it's incredibly empowering, right? Like, I've actually had moments in my life that were really defeating, and I've thought about this pose, and I thought, wow, I'm part of that 2% that can do Karandavasana, and I'm letting this situation in my life get me down. Wait a moment. No, I need to channel that power again and find that will to survive and get through it and thrive again. So this is definitely an asana that will teach you that. Enjoy the ride, enjoy the process. make it your own, and just know that you can do it. The second you decide that it's yours and you can do it, you will, I promise. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.